Ted, I know you love crappy old stuff no one cares about. But I'm gonna give you 4 words to live by. New is always better.
And this theory applies to everything?
Everything.
So those new Star Wars movies, those are better than the old ones?
Yeah.
And when you're at a Guns N' Roses concert, you're like, yeah, Paradise City, whatever. When are they gonna rock me some Chinese democracy?
Axel's really matured as a songwriter, Ted.
Wendy, I'd like to buy my friend a drink. What's your oldest scotch?
Glenn McKenna, aged 30 years in oak casks. Amazing.
And what's your newest scotch?
Jumbo Jim's grape scotch. Don't let it touch your skin.
Your call, buddy.
I wanted to start with this clip because something I've come to learn recently is that new is not always better. In fact, sometimes new is a glass of Jumbo Jim's grape scotch. So after streaming 24 days of Stormgate, playing 491 games of Vanguard, 72 games of Infernal, and 167 games of Celestial Ladder, I can confidently tell you guys that I've gotten all the enjoyment that I'm going to get out of Stormgate. But many of you have been asking for my thoughts, and since I predicted I'd be playing Stormgate for 6 months after it came out, and I'm now quitting it less than a month after it came out, I think I do owe you guys some thoughts. So I took some time to write them all down, and we're going to try to do a video on it for you guys. I also wanted to tell you guys what my plans were for the next few months of content creation, so if you are interested in what I'll be doing next, stick around to the end of the video, and we'll be going over that. I do think the future of RTS does still look very bright, so there is a lot to look forward to still. Also, I'm doing this new type of jump cut editing that I've never tried before for the first time, so excuse me if the transitions aren't like perfectly smooth. So I want to start by saying that there were probably very few people as excited for Stormgate as I was. As a North American Starcraft 2 player, I have been dying for an RTS that's similar to SE2 with actual dev support. So for those non-hardcore SE2 players, you should know that although SE2, yes, is the best and most well-designed RTS currently on the market, it's also the most heavily abandoned game title given the amount of people that still play it every single day. And to help illustrate this, I made a quick PowerPoint presentation for you guys on the reasons why I quit StarCraft 2, as a North American player, of course. So before everything, we know there was nothing. And then there was North America. And as someone who's lived in North America my whole life, and someone who plays online video games, I've gotten to enjoy a certain luxury where every time I connect to an online video game server, I know that server is going to be located in North America. And the benefit of that, of course, is that you get to enjoy low latency, low ping online gaming. And this is something that kind of worked for many, many, many years until Blizzard Entertainment decided to come along and kind of reinvent the wheel. So a few years ago, Blizzard came to the StarCraft 2 community and they said, look guys, we're going to take the North American server and we're just simply going to add it to Brazil, Australia, and Singapore. And this is like, obviously this is naturally what you would do. And we create a new server and we're going to call it the Moon server. And the community kind of just had like a weird reaction to this because nobody really wants to play with 9 million ping. So something we all realized as North Americans is that actually Europe is kind of located closer than Australia is. And that's actually a really huge benefit for ping. So what this effectively did is this got every single serious North American player to just move over to Europe. And that's kind of a problem for me personally, because as someone who lives in North America, it doesn't matter which of these options I pick, they both have a lot of ping. So this is kind of one of the main reasons why, as a North American, the practice in general has declined very much over the years, simply just because all the high-level players have moved over to the other server. And this actually brings us to our next section where we're going to talk about cheaters and stream snipers. So if we actually go into the StarCraft client here, I'm going to show you guys something that I like to show off a lot when I like to give examples of how little Blizzard actually moderates their own game. So if you actually go to the ladder for the previous season, or just any previous season, you're going to see something at the top of the ladder. And you're going to see some weird barcoded Zerg accounts with like one game played on each of them. And if you go into their profile, you see like an entire like match history filled with 0-second long custom games. And what this actually is, this is someone using a win trading method to get their account into the top 16, or more accurately, the rank 1 spot. And they're just doing this every single season over and over to just basically troll the entire ladder and to troll Blizzard. And this might not be a big deal if this lasted like a season or two, but just to give you guys a little bit of insight here, if you go to this guy's career summary, you can actually see that he's been doing this since the year 2019, just consistently ruining the fucking ladder experience for every single serious North American player, and it's been this many years. So this is kind of just my go-to example. But another thing that I like to talk about is how easy it is to stream snipe in StarCraft 2. So if you guys don't know, you can literally just like go to any single profile on the Grandmaster ladder or just any ladder, and you just click their profile, you click the chat button, and you just send them a couple messages. And if they're online and searching, it'll literally tell you they're searching for a match. Like you see how we have like the custom messages under the name? It will literally tell you they are searching for a game if you message them. And even if you block the person, it doesn't prevent it. They can still message you and see when you're queuing up. And to top that off, there's actually a limit to the amount of people that you can block in StarCraft 2. So if you're a streamer like me who has to block every single time anybody types anything like profound or racist or homophobic or whatever, you eventually, after a few months, hit this cap where you just hit the end of your block list. And then every single time someone decides to come into my stream or during a game and they spam the N-word over and over and over again, I literally don't have a way to block them. So this is just like a few of the examples as to like the lack of moderation and the lack of moderation tools available to a streamer or just a player that plays this game. And this brings us to the next section where we're going to talk about the balance and the game design, which I've definitely not been a fan of as of the last few years. So a few years ago, Blizzard essentially left us in the car while the car was still running and said, don't worry guys, even though we're literally never going to come back to this car, we're going to give the keys over to this company called ESL, which is owned by Saudi Arabia, and then they're going to give full control of the balance and design of the game over to a bunch of biased pro players with zero game dev experience whatsoever. And then this, naturally, to nobody's surprise, is going to lead to a bunch of balance patches and map pool changes with a bunch of bugs that don't get fixed for literally half of a year on average. And my favorite example of this was the Cyclone. And for those of you who don't play the game, the Cyclone is an extremely important early game unit for Terran. Arguably the most important early game unit in some matchups. And the story of the Cyclone goes that literally on the ESL Balance Council, one or two players decided that they were going to completely rework the Cyclone from the ground up and give it basically a whole new role in the game. And after talking to many people inside the Balance Council personally, I've basically learned that the majority of people on that council, even though they were completely against it, and even though you could visibly see from the community's perspective that everybody was against the Cyclone change, that change still somehow made it into the game. And because it was such a massive change to the unit, and once again, because we have non-game developers making game development, there were a bunch of issues with the Cyclone. And the biggest one was that the Cyclone, every once in a while, would stop shooting. And I don't know about you guys, but when I play an RTS game and I build a unit, I really expect the unit to shoot its gun at a unit that I tell it to. So that came with its set of issues for sure. And the most embarrassing part about the Cyclone bug was that literally stayed in the game for half of a year. And they literally ran a $500,000 StarCraft 2 esports event while that bug was live. So you can imagine why I'm now frustrated seeing all these balance patches coming out and all these changes coming out that are just being untested. Blizzard has basically no role other than a single intern to our knowledge. And it's just been a dumpster fire, guys. And you got to remember, I've been playing StarCraft 2 for over 14 years now, and I still probably would go back to playing it if some of the things that I've mentioned here got fixed, but there really just hasn't been a sign of any of that happening, and it's honestly just gotten worse. Like, we don't know if ESL is re-upping next year for another tournament. We don't know if GSL is even re-upping, and even though this is something we experience every year, like we don't know what's going to happen next year, it seems to just get like more worrying every single year. And eventually we are just going to hit the end. So It's kind of why I kind of want to get ahead of it. Like I did stick with it for 14 years. You have to give me credit. But you know, when it comes to the end, it comes to the end. I'd be happy to come back. We just have to get some changes from Blizzard. So moving on to Stormgate. Stormgate, Stormgate, Stormgate. My sweet, beautiful angel princess, star in the sky, Stormgate. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how an RTS works exactly, from the way that, like, the units move around the map to the way that, like, unit priorities work in engagements to like how the economies work to how the game runs to how the game feels, how the game looks. I've listened to opinions of others. I watched Day 9 play for 12 hours and give his opinion on all the little intricacies of the game and how everybody went into in depth there and the conversation that went on the community with that. I've talked to my friends about it and talked to them extensively about their own thoughts. And honestly, the main goal of all of these conversations for me has been to understand what makes Stormgate a next generational RTS. And when I look at the way that Stormgate was marketed to me, I remember being excited about certain things that sounded futuristic and cool to me, that sounded next generational. And one of these things that initially drew my eye was that in this game, each player was going to get a 300 army max supply cap instead of the 200 army max supply cap that you would get in StarCraft 2. And to me, that's an example of something that would be considered a next generational RTS. Something that can run more units on the screen just as smoothly as you could before. And as I started to play more and like take a closer look, I started to notice like something that's pretty important, and that's like if you look at StarCraft 2, you look at the unit supply values here. We got 1 supply for a Marine, and we got 1 supply for a Reaper, 2 supply for a Marauder, 2 supply for a Ghost. And Ghost is like your really high-tech unit, right? And that's pretty low supply value. And if you go over to Stormgate, you actually notice that these values are actually just like double their StarCraft 2 counterparts. For the most part, you'll find some exceptions, but like you have the Lancer at 2 supply, you've got the XO, which is the Marine, at 2 supply, and you've got the Graven even, which is like your super high-tech barracks unit, and you've got it at 4 supply. So it's like, what's the point of saying even 300 supply if we just do that? Anyways, this brings me to my next kind of point here, which is going to be lag and how the game actually runs the amount of units that it can produce. It's really hard for me to understand why my $1,500 gaming PC rig, a PC rig capable of running a 4v4 in StarCraft 2 at 140 frames per second in the late game, isn't capable of making it to the 3-minute mark in a game of Stormgate without dipping below 30 frames per second. And I'm very unsure how any company in the world would be able to take the current version of Stormgate from where it currently is today and make it capable of running a 3v3 at over 60 FPS before the end of 2024. And that was the big announcement, by the way, guys, that came out this week, is that Frost Giant has moved up their timetable and is now releasing the 3v3 mode this year. And guys, I gotta be honest, I don't think like any company in the industry can be able to achieve that goal by the end of 2025. And I'll be fair to you guys, like my PC does need a bit of an upgrade. I do have a modern graphics card. I've got a 4070, which is completely fine when it runs this game. Graphics is not the issue, obviously, if you look at the game. But if you actually look at your CPU, it's always going to be the thing that caps out the most, because your CPU is really the thing that takes care of like the pathing of all the different units on the screen. And definitely my CPU does need a bit of an upgrade. However, my problem is that I do have friends that even do have the most up-to-date CPUs, and even their games are hitting like insanely low frame rates once their armies start to get close to like the max supply value in 1v1 games. So like these are guys who paid top dollar for their gaming computers to play video games, and they aren't going to be really happy with 60 FPS either. And that was kind of like the goal that I set before as something that would be like impossible to do. Like they need to do better than that. Additionally, as someone who plays RTS games at the highest level, or sorry, in North American, close to the highest level, 60 FPS ain't doing it for me, fam. Like, to me, 60 FPS literally feels like driving a Honda Civic while towing a semi-truck behind you. Like, you're going to feel that, okay? It's going to not feel fast at all. And there's no way I can justify playing more until I can upgrade my CPU anyways. So even if I wanted to play more Stormgate, like, I really can't enjoy it at the current frame rate anymore. And lag is only really just the beginning of it, guys. There have been like some insane desync bugs that we've been having to deal with, and I'm sure eventually they'll get fixed, but like having to deal with them like while you're playing is just like a whole other experience. Just take a look at this game where there's this bug that I played the other day where my opponent gets full control of his game and my game just freezes, and it doesn't unfreeze until it's time to sync back up, and then it just like literally fast forwards through my entire base dying. And then just take a look at my reaction here. Uh-oh. No, come back. No. Come on, come back. Oh, God. No. I worked so hard for this fucking win against this cheesy piece of shit, and they're just going to take it away from me. Ugh. No.
Capture point lost. Our forces are
I can't do anything.
Our base is under attack.
Truly the epitome of enjoyment. And honestly, if we were to like assume that Stormgate ran at 240 FPS all the time and had no server lag or any desyncs, there are many, many more things that concern me here. One topic that comes to mind a lot is sort of like, what is the vision of the game? What is Stormgate? What do you do during a game of Stormgate? What is your goal? When you play your first 1v1 match and you sit down for the first time, what happens? Well, let's take a look. So immediately you spawn in here with a base and 8 workers and a scout unit, just like you would in kind of any other RTS game. But the thing that kind of makes this a little bit different is you go look at the minimap here. And at the minimap, you'll see a bunch of like weird kind of icons that you've never really seen before. So what you do naturally is you go check them out and you see what they are. So then you start to find these like weird kind of looking things that are called slimes, okay, and they're protecting what looks like a health tower that will grant my units health, okay. And then you'll kind of come over to this tower and you'll be like, oh, okay, so we got some green kind of shadowy dog looking things that I guess they're protecting this thing that increases the movement speed of your, okay. And just to check, like, do these like follow you anywhere? Like, no. They go back every single time because they live to protect this stone pillar. Like, they would literally commit suicide if they walked even a step further. And then you check out this one, it's like, oh, okay, so another purple kind of shadowy monster-looking thing. So if this one's a purple shadowy monster-looking thing, and this one's a purple shadowy monster thing, how come the health camp is a green slimy thing? Okay, so we got green slimy things and then purple kind of like spooky monsters. And then we got the last one, which is like a Luminite camp, and that's going to be a bruiser, which is a... I just didn't understand. Like, there's no vision between it. Like, there's nothing that makes sense on the first glance of this. Like, apparently you like look deeper into it and it's like these are all monsters from different worlds, and it's like where's any amount of game dev like thinking about how this should work? Like, for example, in this game, if you kill any of the creeps that I just showed you at any of the towers, you actually get a bonus. So if I were to kill these creeps, you're going to see when this dies, you're going to get a little plus 30 Luminite bonus there. So I get 30 Luminite for killing that guy, I get 30 for that guy, I get 30 for that guy. And then when those two guys, I'm also going to get 30. And then after they both die, you're going to have the opportunity to take the tower. So I'm going to capture the tower, and now I'm going to get the effects of that specific tower. So in this tower's case, we're going to get health. And in this tower's case, we're going to get a speed buff. And this tower is going to give us money on top of the money that you get from killing the creep at the tower. And this one is going to give us vision, which sounds cool in theory, but the weird thing about the design of this is that this will actually respawn. If you see, there is a gray circle around the blue circle if you look very closely, and it's like a timer. And when it hits 0, the creeps that I just killed are going to respawn with one difference. The difference is when you kill them the next time, you're going to get double the amount of resources. Not double the amount of healing, not double the amount of speed, not double the amount of money over time, not even double the amount of vision. What you get is double the amount of money for killing the creep. So not only is there no vision on how the creep camps look, but the creep camps like also just operate in the most questionable way imaginable. Like, you're going to tell me that if the speed camp respawns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a row, on the 5th time, you're still going to get the exact same amount of speed buff that you did on the first time, but you're going to get 5 times the amount of money from killing the creeps? Like, that doesn't, like, come on, guys. Like, the Luminite camp doesn't give you more money over time, but the creeps will double in value. Like, what's the purpose of a Luminite camp if every camp on the map gives you the same amount of money as the Luminite camp would by the time it respawns? Like, it doesn't make sense, and it gives a very bad taste in the mouth because it just makes you feel like this dev team is just too busy arguing with themselves and not even, like, agreeing on what their game needs to be. Like, this creep camp mechanic that I just explained is like half of what Stormgate is so far. Like, when I play the game, I spend half the game killing creep camps, and it's like, I don't know what the purpose of these are, and they're just designed poorly. And we're running out of time, guys. Like, this game needs to be fun now, or this company will fail. And these decisions are just not adding up to me, and it makes me feel like if we're just not going to get what we need ever. And this brings us to our final section of the video, the balance of Stormgate. So I want to illustrate for you guys in calendar form here exactly like my own experience playing Stormgate, mostly as a Vanguard player, but just my own experience playing since the game came out for early access on July 30th. So July 30th hits, game's out, everyone's really excited, the energy's great. You know, we spend the first couple days kind of just reading through the races, like having a good time, learning about all the new units that came out, learning all the new abilities. It's really hard to find like a really bad moment from either of those 2 days. But the third day is like when we really find our first hiccup, and it's that there's a new build order that somebody discovered where you can rush out a very early game unit called the Morph Core. And here's a clip of the Morph Core attacking my base at the 60-second mark into the game. Oh! What? Ain't no fucking way. Oh, he lasered me. Hello? So a game-ruining, game-ending build order that was discovered that ends the game at the 60-second mark into a match was discovered on the third day, which might be fine if it was hotfixed or balanced out. Instead, we had to wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally on the 6th day of Christmas, we got a patch. And that's kind of a big deal because if you guys know how an RTS that is new works, is that you'll get about 2 more days before something else takes over as the new overpowered strategy. So for the next wave of balance, we had to deal with the dog meta. And the dog meta was, if you guys have tuned into literally any Stormgate stream, it's where the dog is the scout unit, has an upgrade that is so disgustingly overpowered that it makes the dog the only unit worth building as Vanguard. That means in Vanguard versus Vanguard, you are playing dog versus dog every single game, and you have to deal with the game's pathing.
Research complete. Not enough luminite.
It's not. They could easily just have attack moved through that corridor. I gave them a command to do it.
Insufficient energy. Not enough lumen.
So there we were with literally the worst meta in any mirror matchup that I've ever had to play in my entire life. And you guessed it, we had to wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then on the 12th day, we got a patch. However, you guessed it, that patch didn't even nerf the dog meta. So when I queued up yesterday, I found out that my entire ladder session was still just dog versus buggy dog meta. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot do it anymore. And another huge thing that we just didn't really mention much today is that a lot of people have complained to me on stream about the sound design, like they can't hear the sounds when I'm playing. And the simple reason is I had to lower the sounds like on the second day of playing this game because a lot of voice lines in the game and a lot of sound effects are either just too loud or they repeat too much. And it was just driving me insane literally on the second day. So I assure you, even if we were to like raise the volume and look deeper into that, it wouldn't look any better. And I wrote a list here of just some other things that I didn't really have time to get to today. So just to like kind of bullet point, knock them off. We have can't resume game after losing, which really sucks. You have to like go into the replay, which takes forever every time you lose. You can't create a chat channel to easily get groups of people to play together. You can't pause in multiplayer. I don't even think you can pause in campaign. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can't see your profile in the client. You have to go to like some other website. The game was supposed to not be deathball-y, and it ended up being like one of the most deathball-y RTS games that you can play, especially if you're Vanguard and you get enough exos. What else? You can't change your hotkeys, and if you do change your hotkeys, it's kind of buggy and there's a lot of errors. The quick build menu is very broken, especially if you're Vanguard. The Bobs really don't ever do anything that you want them to do. Even if you don't use the quick build menu, the Bobs are very, very buggy. And then final point here is too many animations during fights, so it's like really hard to tell what's going on during a fight, especially when it gets to the big army supply fights. Like there's just too many flashing lights and sparkling colors. You just don't know what's going on. And the more you look at it, the more it seems like this game is like even 3 years away from being a finished game. So yeah, guys, there it is. Like in summation, like between the lag and the bugs and the balance decisions and the lack of vision, and I didn't even go into like much of the pathing issues. Like this video is already almost going into 30 minutes, so I really got to cut it down now. But like I just can't take it anymore. At the end of the day, my it just feels bad. Like individually, every single thing isn't that bad, but when you add it together, it's like, what is going on here? And because of that, I think I'm just going to spend some time playing other games. I will come back to Stormgate maybe next year if the company's still going and they make some good changes. I'll definitely check it out. I'm a huge fan of like parts of the game for sure. I love the fact that Stormgate is a slower version of SE2. One of the things that I hate about StarCraft 2 is the fact that your army will literally disappear just like that. I think it's great in Stormgate that you can like actually micro your units to some degree. It's just, yeah, the game is just not there yet, and I'm not quite sure if they're going to be able to do that in the time they have left with the money that they have left. But of course, I'm cheering for them. Like, and this kind of gets on to the point of like the future of RTS. Like, we got a lot of other projects coming out soon. Like, I don't know if you guys have checked out Tempest Rising yet. Tempest Rising looks freaking amazingly good in the state that it's in. And if you guys have been keeping up with Battle Aces, that's going to be amazing. I'm definitely going to be playing that when it comes out to the next beta. And yeah, for the next foreseeable future, though, I've decided via a Twitter poll that I'm going to be playing most likely either AoE 2 or AoE 4 for at least the next little bit. There's also Age of Mythology, I guess remastered, coming out soon, so I'm probably going to play that a little bit. But for my streams, for the next probably few months, we're going to be doing a little kind of bronze to GM Age of Empires 2, Age of Empires 4 grind, and I'm really, really looking forward to it, and I'm really, really hoping you guys come and check me out and join me on the journey. I'm looking for backseat gamers. I'm looking for backseat gamers, guys, for the first time ever. please come join me and actually just enjoy learning a good RTS together. And eventually one day, like, somebody will nail it. Like, even if it's not Frost Giant, like, somebody will make an RTS that gets my attention long term. But for now, Stormgate, I'm going to have to pass. I'm very sorry, guys. I know a lot of you enjoyed watching it, but that's just it for me. So yeah, hit subscribe, stay tuned for the live streams, and I'll see you guys next time.